There we go. Well, it is such an honor to have Cliff's mom, Julie Merriman, join us. Um, she is a mental health professional who specializes in substance abuse, especially and mental health issues in rural areas. And, after the last, we'd like to focus on this year, but really it's been the last several years have been so difficult. It's really important that we take care of ourselves, and recognizing that just like when you're on an airplane, it's important to take care of yourself first before you can help anyone else. So, Julie, welcome. It's an honor to have you, and we'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for making some time to talk about stuff people don't really like to talk about. Silly me, in my career, my dissertation was on self-care and burnout and compassion fatigue and stuff. So I've spent quite a few years researching this area. So I just want to share some things that I've learned, not only through my research, but also lived experience with my patients. And right now I'm a clinical director at a recovery center here in the middle of nowhere. It's funny, it's not funny, but sometimes the clients, they get frustrated and they're like, well, we're going to go against medical advice and go walk off. And I'm like, you're going to get eaten by a pig. A redneck's going to shoot you because it's hunting season. Or you're it's not going to end up well because we are in rural America. So it's really a good place to have a center. They stay in treatment, but that's not what this is about. So I want to talk to you about your brain on burnout, especially here in rural America. That worked earlier. It's not working now. Oh, there it is. Okay. Are y'all still with me?
Yes, we're with you.
Okay, good. I thought I did something. Okay. So your brain on burnout. We're going to look at, it's not unusual for depression and anxiety to come up as we're experiencing some burnout. So I want to just look at some quick occupational hazards that farmers and ranchers need to be aware of and utilize some proven prevention strategies that I'm going to share with you. But compassion fatigue is one construct to be aware of. And compassion fatigue happens when actually y'all are good at what you do. You care about your stock, you care about your crops, you care about your family. You give a lot of compassion. And sometimes we give more than we have to give, and it helps, we become a little bit drained, if you will. And then vicarious trauma, and again, when you're taking care of stock, when you're taking care of crops, just dealing with having to get the money in place to take care of all the things you have to take care of can be somewhat traumatic. And it's a real thing, and it's nothing to be ashamed about, but it is something to be aware of and really hold space and be aware. It's beyond the awareness, holding space and not judging when those things come up. And then burnout. And, my husband is a state trooper here in Texas, plus he farms and ranches, and I watch him work 10, 15-hour days back to back to back. And I remember when he farmed full time. I mean, y'all, there's a lot that goes into what we do when we're taking care of the land and taking care of crops and taking care of animals. And I remember my husband sitting up in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep, worrying about if rain was going to come, or if he was going to be able to get the soybeans out before it started raining. There's just, burnout happens when more is demanded of us than we have resources to give. And it's a real construct. And again, nothing to be ashamed about. My invitation to you as we visit is to really hold space and just think about how some of these things might impact you without judgment, because it's not about judgment. It's about, these are real things that happen. So those are just a few constructs I wanted to introduce. Any questions about that before I go on?
Are you fine having questions in chat too, Julie?
That's if I don't see chat,
Well, we can monitor it for you.
that would be great. Yeah,
Okay, great. So everyone feel free to ask questions in chat.
please. I just see my my PowerPoint right this moment. So
We're not seeing your PowerPoint for some reason, Julie.
not seeing my PowerPoint.
Mm,
Oh, well, that's not okay.
let's make sure we're on the right.
Let me go back to. I'm used to having, at the university, I had a person, my tech person, to come save me.
Try again there.
Let's see. Um, share screen. Do you see it?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to try to, I apologize. Do you still see it?
It looks great.
Yay. Okay. I thought I was sharing that screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we went over these constructs. Now I want to talk to you about a few things that happen, and they're really normal things to happen when we're, and I'm going to focus more on burnout, but it can happen with compassion fatigue or vicarious trauma. But most of my rural folks really can resonate with the burnout piece. And again, burnout is about, we're having to give more than there are resources to give. So we have nothing left to give. And that can cause us to feel negative and pessimistic at times. And no wonder the work y'all do, it's tough. And someone who's not lived in rural America and really walked in your moccasins and understood what it's like to live, your life is ruled by, is the crop coming up? Do I need to go plow? Do I need to plant? Do I need to go get those crops in? What are my cows doing? Oh my goodness, I've got to go tag. It's 24/7. So the work y'all do is very tough. But a proven strategy I want to share with you to help offset this negativity and pessimism that can come up, it's called compassion satisfaction. And this construct was, I guess in the early 90s, Barbara Stam started doing some research on burnout and found that some of the subjects she was researching, they weren't experiencing as deep a burnout in the same situation. And what she found was these folks really were able to experience compassion satisfaction. And what that is, basically it's gratitude, but they were able to see the joy that they got out of their job. Yes, it's hard work, but look at what I'm doing. I wouldn't want to do anything else in life. This is my plan. And I get so much joy out of the work I do. And sometimes y'all, and we get to going and we forget to stop and really make space, make room for that gratitude. But that's neuroscience. When we stop and really think about, visualize, write down things we're grateful for, we get a little hit of dopamine. We get a little hit of endorphins. Those positive hormones come up for us that helps to level out the negativity and the pessimism. I have my clients often start a gratitude journal. And by that, that's just in the morning or at lunch or in the evening, whenever you make space for yourself, to just jot down 3 things you're thankful for. And it might be like my dog went in his cage without me having to yell at him a minute ago. And I am grateful for that, because I was going to chase him. And that's something I'm grateful for. It can be little things, but it could also be really big things. Like you did get the crop out before it started raining or whatever it might be. But I forget who said it, but it just really resonated. Our life is made up of minutes. It's not those big, huge things. It's the minutes of our life that really count. And when we take time to practice compassion, satisfaction, gratitude, it helps us be more aware of that. So I just invite you to think about doing something like that for yourself. And again, that's neuroscience. Well, I need to get to the next slide. Okay. So addictive. And it's no wonder that we want to escape or numb or get away from things when we have so much we have to get done. Sometimes maybe our mind doesn't turn off. There's a lot we have to worry about. It's normal. Humans want to just kind of get some relief and relax. When we find ourselves really in this place where we want to numb or escape or get away, it can lead us to a place of, and when I say addictive, just doing things like eating too much or wanting too much chocolate or having one too many beers or whatever it might be, whatever our go-to might be. Netflix might be Facebook, social media, whatever we're doing to kind of numb out. I just invite us to be cognizant of that, because there is a slippery slope of addiction setting in. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone. I'm just saying there's a possibility. So I want to share with y'all a proven strategy. And y'all, this works. It might be, I don't want to eat so many carbs, or I need to get up and go exercise, whatever it might be. This thought model I'm going to share with y'all is magic sauce of the thought model. And it's good, basic cognitive behavioral therapy. So what happens? So like earlier, I thought, man, I'm going to go home and there's some chocolate in there that I was really wanting, but I thought I don't need to have that chocolate because we're going to the beach and I might need to wear a bathing suit. So I really worked this thought model. So a fact happens, a thought comes up, a feeling occurs, and an action happens. It takes a little bit to catch that thought. So when I got home, the fact was, in essence, I was tired. I was tired. The thought came up, I want some chocolate to kind of I want a reward. I deserve some chocolate. It's going to help me just kind of chill. I get a little reward there. The feeling was, I want this. I'm overwhelmed. I want something to kind of get my mind off of how I'm feeling. And action would have been to eat chocolate. But that fact, you have to be able to describe that with no drama, just fact. And the fact of the matter was, I'm tired. And my thought, I deserve something. Or the thought was, yeah, I deserve something. And that led to a feeling. So my invitation here is, y'all, facts happen. The thought, if we change that thought, it's going to change the feeling and it's going to change the action. So I invite you to kind of play with that. But this thought model, if you can get that going, it is a game changer. The thought creates the feeling. Your superpower is changing that thought. And it might be, my husband said, my husband said, you're not going to exercise this morning. My thought is, oh, you think I'm fat? My feeling is mad. And my action is, I react to that. When the fact was, he was just asking a simple question. I changed that thought. Oh, that's sweet. He's interested in my exercise, which is the truth, which has a whole different feeling. Do y'all see how that goes? Does that make? I'm gonna move on, but I hope that is something y'all be able to plug in, because it really can help with our behaviors. And when we're stressed and overwhelmed, sometimes we go to numbing behaviors that don't serve us. So self-sabotaging can also occur when we're burned out, we're tired, that I give a care is kind of broken. And it can cause us to do some self-sabotaging types of behaviors, like knowing that, I don't know, ladies, washing our face before we go to bed perhaps is part of a healthy routine, and we're tired, we just don't care, and we quit doing that. And then we have, I don't know, breakouts or something. I'm old, I don't get those anymore, but we can go to very self-sabotaging behaviors when we're burned out and tired and just don't care. So I would just invite you to really ask yourself, where is your belief in you when you find yourself not doing what you know you should do, so you have more of a positive outcome. And again, I want to normalize these things. These things happen when we're in a place that we're tired. But when you get to a place where you're really not serving yourself well, I invite you to do the proven strategy is called the best friend call. Have y'all noticed sometimes you'll say your self-talk is more mean to yourself than you would ever say out loud to another person? You'll be more harder on yourself. A best friend call is stopping and reframing that self-talk to something that you would say to your best friend. Instead of being so hard and mean to yourself, reframing that. And it's called self-compassion. It's a whole construct, but the bottom line to self-compassion is being nice to yourself, knowing that I did the best I could. It's okay. Especially when we have so much at stake. We're out in the country. We have, I don't know about y'all, my closest neighbor, I got to get in the car. Anyone else? Is your neighbor a way off? When we're out in the country, it's just important, wherever you live, it's very important that you practice self-compassion. And when you find yourself in self-sabotaging behaviors, to stop, practice a pause, and really go deep and try to reframe that self-talk to where it's kinder. Self-compassion, that's an important one. And then as we become burned out, our brain, when we're burned out, when we've got so much going on and stress is coming up and we're anxious and maybe a little depression is tickling at us, we get a dump of some negative hormones, cortisol and other types of hormones, that there's a reason that we become scattered and distracted. And maybe we get to one room and we're like, why did I even walk into this room? Or someone tells you, or your wife or husband or child says, but I told you yesterday I needed that. And we have absolutely no recall because our brain is just in overdrive and we become very scattered and distracted. And you have so much to do. I mean, there's no wonder. But of course, a proven strategy, a to-do list. And I'm sure all of y'all do to-do lists, but I really invite you to be very, very cognizant of how you put your to-do list together and prioritize the things that you know you can get done in an 8-hour period and chop off the rest. I sat with a patient the other day as we were working on her to-do list, and I made her tear it in half. And I thought she was going to have a panic attack, but she didn't. But, she came in the next week and she was like, my God, that was amazing. I had such a different week when I was really realistic about the things I could do in a day and allow myself to sit down and allow myself to make eye contact with my family and allow myself to not just be so driven about what's on my to-do list. So just a to-do list is awesome and it's going to help you when you're scattered and distracted, but I really invite you not to overdo it. Make it out, tear it in half, and see get that much done. Because some will come up the next day. I also invite you to take a 5-minute break when you're really scattered. I mean, maybe this is before you get to the to-do list, but and research backs this up. You've got to open some space and just breathe. There's lots of great YouTubes with like a piano playing, or I mean, now we can just pull up Sirius FM or Sirius radio on our phone, but some relaxing music for 5 minutes, just make everything stop, breathe deep, and just, it's almost a meditative state, but it certainly is a state of just unplugging. Give yourself 5 minutes to just unplug. I guarantee you, if you'll do that for yourself, you're going to get more done that next hour. And, you know, sometimes when I've got a lot, especially when I'm writing, every hour on the hour, I'll set that 5 minutes and I'm far more productive. And sometimes I just get up and go out and look at the chickens, or, you know, I just go out to nature. You do whatever works best for you in that 5 minutes, but that unplug is really important. Yeah. So when we get, when we're burned out, when we're anxious a lot, especially if we're feeling a little depressed. And you know, when we start with burnout and we don't take care of ourselves and we continue with that burnout, it's going to turn to depression. It's going to, and it could be situational. I'm not saying it's a life sentence, but it's really important for us to learn to listen to our body and do what our body needs. But demotivated and drained certainly can happen when we feel burned out. And yeah, you give more than you have to give, because if you don't do it, who is, right? There's so much to do. A proven strategy to help when you're feeling that way. And it sounds like, yeah, we learned that in kindergarten, Jules, but when you're tired, stop. It's okay. Maybe you're actually tired, you know, and you need to just stop. Put on your jammies and spend a day in your jammies. And it may take more than one day. And I can feel, I mean, like, oh, I got all this stuff I've got to do. I can't do that. But I have worked with people, and I've worked in psychiatric units where folks came in just because they were so exhausted. They were so depleted. It took a good 2 or 3, maybe 6 months to get them back to a normal state where they could feel like they could function again. And I mean, it's just not worth getting that far over. If to just stop and take a day in your jammies can help you stay healthy and balanced, do it. That's the oxygen mask that we spoke of earlier, that the stewardess always says, you know, put it on you, because when you fall out in the aisle, we don't help anyone. You know, so we want to keep that oxygen mask on. So by taking care of ourselves, in truth, we're better able to help others. I don't know, does anyone go, ain't no way I'm going to spend a day in jammies? Or y'all like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I guess, Julie, I sound spending a day or 2 or 8 in bed when jammies sounds pretty good. So, you know, what is that safety net that keeps you from going a little too far?
Oh, good point. Yes. You know, and that's going to be on a case by case. Because if 8 days really feels like I need 8 days in jammies, that might be what you need. But I'd say after a week, we want to check it. And really, after, you know, a couple of days, I find when I know I need it, I will do it for a few days. And then I start getting bored and I realize I'm re-energized. So it's very individualized, but I would certainly say after about a week, certainly you want to check in, throw your flag and say, am I really okay, or do I need something else? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, and certainly, you know, in rural areas, sometimes, you know, I guess it can be hard to find somebody that, you know, recognizing that you might need a little help to get out of the bed. And, you know, who
That's
is
right.
that person that, you know, you turn to?
Right. Well, you know, and we're really talking about two different constructs because yes, we can feel demotivated and drained and need a couple of days in our jammies and actually feel a little bit better. But we might be depressed and totally losing interest in life, totally. And I'm not saying suicidal necessarily. I'm saying just the things that you found joy in just doesn't really interest me anymore. I don't have the energy to even get up and, you know, brushing my teeth feels like an effort. That's a flag that you want to check in with a mental health professional. And on my last slide, I've got some ideas for y'all there. Because yes, a lot of y'all are out in very rural areas where you don't have a mental health professional on the corner. But one thing that COVID did get of us was mental health therapists who are now trained to do online type counseling. So you can just sit where you are right now. And in fact, where I'm at, this studio I have right here is where I see my clients online. So there's help without having to leave the house if you can't find someone local. But that's do y'all well, I'm trying to process my thought here. Some of those things, there are some online assessments that I will be happy to share with y'all that you can, like the Beck Depression, and it's free and it's online, and I'm happy to send that link. If the Beck Depression scale, you know, to kind of check for yourself if these things are happening. Yeah, maybe I do need to check in with a professional. Because there's one thing, like I said, if you're burned out and kind of demotivated and I'm just exhausted, I'm going to take a day or two and just feel better. But if it goes on and on, yeah, that is a sign to go get some help. So I hope that helps. Those two constructs are a little different.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So if we're in a place of burnout that's maybe turning, I find my anxious folks will be really self-critical, on high alert about worrying about things, often will spin into 10 miles down the road worrying about something, the worst case scenario, or 10 miles back in the past worrying about something they said a way they wish they hadn't said it, and can be very self-critical. And for real, I mean, that doesn't feel good, and it really doesn't serve it doesn't serve. And it's kind of coupled with self-compassion. Being self-critical isn't helpful. And it really, again, there's neuroscience with it. We have neural pathways that we've trained our brain to think a certain way. And the more we're self-critical, the more we're saying mean things about ourselves, that pathway gets deeper and deeper. This proven strategy is about helping you build a new neural pathway so that your thoughts change. And when our thoughts change, our body reacts different to those thoughts. So one thing you can do if you find yourself being really self-critical is to fact check. Because a lot of times, and sometimes people, when I share this idea with them, they'll go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. But in reality, the past, and this isn't to negate whatever we experienced in our past, but the past lives as a fantasy per se in our brain, because all we have is our perception of what happened in the past, and it's gone. It's over. The only thing that's really that we have is right here, the present, and the future is another fantasy, because none of us can predict what the future is going to be like. but we'll spend a lot of time down there projecting that. And we'll spend a lot of time in the past. But if we can fact check and try to keep ourselves more grounded in the present, and that can go a long way in helping us negate the anxiety and the depression and the burnout we might be feeling. So one thing, a tool I use with my clients quite a bit is for them to fact check. If they're having a lot of really critical things, critical self-talk, just believing they're not doing the right thing, just believing that, man, life just is sucking right now. Fact check really helps. And with one way to do a fact check is to create a timeline. And on that timeline, really focus on your accomplishments. Chart out all the accomplishments that have happened since high school, since college, since last year, since, it's last 10 years, sorry, since last year, last month, and then last week and today. Y'all, you were doing so many amazing things that you've forgotten you've done. It really is a practice in mental health to sit down and see what all you've accomplished and remind yourself of these things you've accomplished. Because oftentimes our brain, one of the reasons we've survived, our ancestors were really good at spotting the danger in society and getting away from it. But we don't have as many dangers now, but our brain is still always looking for the negative to try to keep us safe. Because have y'all ever experienced that? You can be in you've done something and 50 people say what a great job you did, but that one person says something negative, and that's what you hang on. That's our brain is just kind of set up for that. So with fact checking and doing this timeline, it's really about trying to train your brain, that new neural pathway, to see those positives, to recognize all the great things you've done. I know as a professor, I had to do my the CV, and then you have to do your tenure stuff, and you're forced to keep track of all that. And every time I'd go in to get my tenure stuff ready, I'd be stunned. I was like, I don't remember doing all these things, but it was like, well, wow, I did all that stuff. I didn't remember that. So it's good for you to go back and fact check, create that timeline. And as I said, you have to be nice to you, and the neuroscience is there. We're not, our brain, as I said, just wants to keep us safe. So it's looking for that negative, but you trying to train it to see the positive will serve you in the long run. Oh, judgment of self and others. Yeah, that's for real too. And it's understandable. And of course I'm a therapist. So part of my training is, and as I trained other therapists, is we really have to try to leave judgment at the door and just be present with our clients. But I mean, the human, we judge, we put people in boxes, and okay, you fit with me. No, I mean, that's just part of our nature. But we can really be the most judgmental of ourselves. And then we project that onto others. But when we stop and really reflect on that, we will judge ourselves on our insecurities, on maybe some core issues. As just the human species, we want to be loved. We want to be accepted. We want to feel like we are valuable. And sometimes that can be a core issue for folks, believing maybe I'm not valuable, or maybe I'm not lovable, or maybe I'm a fear of being abandoned, which is, I mean, that's deep based on some childhood stuff. But that judgment of self can come into adult life with us. And it can really create some discomfort for us. Especially, I mean, these things, when we're really balanced, they're kind of buzzing in the background, but when we get burned out or anxious or depressed, they're going to come forward. They're really going to play in the foreground more. So being aware of times you feel judgmental, that's fine. I invite you to be curious about that and to be aware of it and not judge it. Just think, that's curious. I wonder why that's coming up for me. I often have people do what I call a rule book, because y'all, we got so many rules from our parents and from just watching life happen when we were kids. And so, you know, we kind of write these rules down, and then now we're grown adults and some of those rules are still operating for us. And we don't always take the time to stop and go, why do I think that? What is that about? So I just invite you, if you find the word should or must or have to coming up, there's probably a rule behind that. That I won't say is running your life, but it certainly is ruling your life. No, I'm playing, but there's a rule there. And I mean, sometimes I'll have folks, papers all written on, but I'll have them just fold a few papers together and we'll write rule book on it and go like, okay, for the next week, I want you to just be really aware of when should, must, or have to comes up and write down what the rule is. And then ask yourself, says who? Where's that rule coming from? And is it serving me? And it might be, and that's fine, but you might decide, well, no, because it makes my tummy hurt, or it makes me worry about this, or it's about things I can't control. But that rule book can be really telling and can certainly help you in judgment of self and others, because that's based on some rules that might or might not be serving you. So, boy, that's freedom to let go of that judgment. Oh my Lord, that's freedom. So, do any of y'all have any I shoulds that come up? Nobody?
I had a coworker once who was really good at doing shoulds, and actually it was really, it did help identify when I would actually say shoulds. So it was so extreme, and it actually got to be kind of a joke, but in a way it was enlightening. So
yeah, that I should, there's a rule behind it for sure.
And his was always you should.
Oh, that's telling too. That okay, emotionally cut off. Y'all, something that just came up, I forgot to say, when the thought model that I told y'all about, the fact, thought, feeling, action, this is so freeing. And it took me probably several years to get this, but I might be remedial. The only thought model in the world you can control is your own. That can get in the way when we're feeling depressed or burned out, or just not functioning at our top notch. When we try to control other people's thought models, it makes for an unhappy time. Because I mean, the only person in the world you can create a feeling in is you. I mean, we need to be socially responsible and kind to others. That's not what I mean, but someone can't make us angry. It's our thought model that operates. So that I meant to say something about that. We want to catch ourselves trying to control other people's thought models, because that leads to some unhappy energy, and could lead to us feeling emotionally cut off. So emotionally cut off can be so bad. It can feel so bad because you're numb. And being numb is no fun. And this isn't being numb from, watching too much TV. This is numb from, we haven't felt our feelings in so long. We've just lost the ability. We haven't lost the ability. We've lost connection with feeling the feelings. A lot of folks will tell me, well, I don't want to feel that feeling because, but the truth is the feeling's happening. It's in your body. It's happening subconsciously and you're reacting to it. And oftentimes depression and anxiety will surface from that. The more emotionally cut off we are, the more that happens. The best favor you can do for yourself is to really get in touch with your emotions and feel them, because the only way to heal stuff is to feel it and get through it. It's a misnomer to think that we can just not feel it and it will go away. It stuffs and, well, it does several things. You can get ulcers. It can lead to cancer. I mean, when we deny our emotions, they're just free agents running around and can do a lot of negative things. Feeling it is the best way to heal ourselves. So I find that a full body scan is really, folks will first will go, Dr. M, you have 4 eyes, but or 3. I have 3 eyes, but then they get the hang of doing the body scan, and it's a game changer. And a body scan is simply taking a minute and, I mean, laying down, sitting in a chair, and just feeling your feet on the ground, best with your shoes off. And I would just invite everyone to do this with me right quick. Just get comfortable in your chair. Just feel your feet on the ground. Take a big deep breath and exhale. And another big deep breath and exhale. And I just invite you to bring your attention to the top of your head. Just notice any physical sensation going on. No judgment, just curiosity. And breathing. And bring your attention to your eyes. Just looking for any physical sensations. And bring your attention to your throat. And moving your attention to your chest. And then your awareness to your upper belly. And lower belly. And feel the weight of your body in the chair. Bringing your attention down your legs, all the way to your tippy toes. And just being curious. Any physical sensation you might notice. And when I'm going to take a minute for you just to be aware of that. It doesn't mean a thing, just being aware of that. What happens as humans, we tend to be very intellectual. We stay in our heads. And these are thoughts. Our feelings are going to happen in our body. And we've become so good at staying in our heads, we're often numb to where our feelings are happening. But if you do that full body scan and you're looking for a feeling, it's going to give you a lot of really good information. I'm a yoga instructor. I do a lot of chakra work, and I try to scan chakras through this as I'm doing my body scan, because it gives me a hint. If my chest is really bothering me, is something going on with my relationships? And I don't know if any of y'all are into yoga and stuff, but we are energy beings, because we have heartbeats, right? We do EKGs and such. But if you couple the full body scan with the thought model, it's really going to help you when you understand, okay, this thought is bringing up, oh, I feel angry. Where am I feeling angry? Let me do this full body scan and get you back into your body and understand where you're feeling your emotions. That can be a game changer, just a real game changer. And once you get to that, like, oh, okay, like I often feel a lot of my emotions in my tummy. And I know that if my tummy starts swirling, okay, something's going on. Let me stop and think about that. Okay, maybe I'm irritated because I don't know, my husband, I don't know, didn't take the trash out, something like that. Because that would never, Kelly doesn't do that. But anyway, let's pretend like he did. And so instead of me stewing on it, talk it out. Go to the person or find someone to talk with your emotions about. Maybe it's a significant other. Maybe you find yourself a good counselor. Maybe you meet a girlfriend at a local or friend at a local coffee shop. I mean, it can look a lot of different ways, or maybe it's just a phone call. But talking it out, I mean, it works. Figure out what I'm feeling. Now let me talk about it. It is such a joy to be able to experience your emotions fully. And negative emotions are just as important as positive emotions. A lot of times we got really mixed messages. And Clifford James, if you're on here, I'm guilty of this. I know I am. But we got really mixed messages from our parents about emotions. Our parents, well, I know my daddy. I can tell you more than once how many times I was going to get something to cry about because he wanted it over with. Or you're fine, rub some dirt on it, you're fine, instead of holding space for kids and helping them understand and express their emotions. Parents, well, and I don't want to pick on parents, but folks are much more willing to sit with happy emotions than with negative emotions. In fact, when I'm training counselors, it takes me a good 3 years to teach them to sit with a negative emotion and not try to fix it. So I just invite you to think about your relationship with negative emotions. And if it feels like that's not a good relationship, try to repair that some, because those negative emotions are important because they help us really appreciate those positive emotions. But we've got to have both sides of that coin. So body scan is really important. Okay, so those are some proven techniques that will help. I love that, Jamie, you brought up that, maybe I want to stay in bed longer. I mean, depression is real. And y'all are, I mean, it was 80 degrees here today, but y'all are cold up there right now, aren't you? Pretty cold. So depression can be when we don't have as much sunlight. It can be situational. It can be situational because I've had some really hard times, or it could be my serotonin level just isn't where it needs to be and I need a little help. No shame in that game. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're someone, if y'all could use some extra help, there's a great website. I know my practice is on here. I looked up Montana. There's all kinds of Montana therapists on here that you can go on, and some of them have little recordings where you can kind of get a feel for what their personality's like. I do want to invite y'all. A therapist or counselor works for you, so you have the right to interview them per se, or before you go to a session, or go to a session and think this isn't a good fit. That's okay. It has to be a good fit for the therapeutic alliance to build so that you can really get some good work done. So I just invite that y'all to, well, I want y'all to understand that, because oftentimes, excuse me, a client will come to me after having been with a therapist for a long time and go, that just wasn't a good fit. That's okay. You're not going to hurt their feelings. This is for you, and this person works for you. So be sure you find a good fit if you do choose to take advantage of that. So now I wanted to open some space for questions you might have, comments. Not everyone at once.
I guess I would say, certainly these days are pretty difficult, I would say. I mean, oftentimes you're more isolated, and then oftentimes you're also entering into conflict situations, and so it's really easy to isolate yourself even more just to avoid that conflict.
To avoid the well, that's conflict is people don't like conflict. People will go to great measures to avoid conflict, and that would be something to certainly process with a therapist. What's under that? What's
Yeah,
what?
sure. I didn't expect an answer. I'm just kind of an observation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but
How do you not feel guilty for wearing pajamas?
Oh, I think you should do it. Ben, here, you want to?
It's on.
Oh,
Ben has a question.
Oli's got his hand up. Can we just wait for and have Oli, and then we'll
Sure.
get to you guys?
So my question kind of relates to what you said about neural pathways. And it sounds like your thought process creates these road patterns in your brain. And you talk about changing those road patterns. And I was wondering if changing those is a feeling, or it is actually a thought that changes the patterns in your neural pathways.
I think it's both. I think because you're going to get, the thought, it's both, because the feeling's going to give you some hormonal dump that's going to affect the brain, but the practice of the thought being it's like lifting weights. You've got to be very purposeful about that thought, because the other thought's going to want to take over. But you've got to really train your brain. It's training your brain. So it is more of a thought. I mean, feelings are going to be involved, but training your brain to go to the thought that creates more of a positive feeling. It can happen, but it takes practice.
So it's really a conscious decision to make a new pathway.
Yes, sir. Very much so. Very much so. And it's very much like, I don't know. I remember when we had a house in Abilene and our dog had beaten a path to the water bowl, and my husband was like, we are fixing this. So he did all this landscaping, and the dog just built a new path this way, but the dog was very purposeful about that. But that's what we do with our brain. But yes, it's very purposeful.
So also just a follow-up question to, you talked about the past, the now, and the future, and how everything kind of being in the now. But if I understand things correctly, your thought processes and your feelings create the future. If you look at it from
Sure. Because those are going to create the behaviors that move towards the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug and crew.
I had a question. This is Ben. We're hanging out, really enjoying this talk, by the way. Thank you so much, Julie.
Oh, good.
And the question I had for you was about the time that you spend in your pajamas. I totally agree with, but what often happens to me is I'll hit that moment, and then I'll spend that day, and then I have sort of a guilt hangover, where for the next few days, I just feel so guilty or upset with myself for wasting that time relaxing when I could have been doing stuff.
Yes. Bless your soul. And so that's a rule book. What rule is telling you don't have the right to relax? You don't have to answer that. You're not alone. I hear people all the time. Oh, I'm so guilty. I can't do that. And I can remember thinking, oh, I can't do that. I'll feel guilty.
You good, Tom?
I love sitting on the sofa now, but it's your thought. It's that thought pattern. And you also believing you deserve the rest. It's okay.
Ask. All should hand. Go ahead.
Hey, Julie, this is Anna. I'm sitting here with the rest of our crew.
Okay.
Doug's computer. Thank you so much for your presentation. So part of doing the work that we do engages a lot of small teams. Like many of us are working together every day today, and we're living together. And it's super hard to separate out like what's your stuff that you're dealing with versus what's somebody else's stuff. So do you have any suggestions on how to navigate that?
You know, girl, that thought model, I would plug some of that into a thought model and see who really owns that.
Yeah, so tell me more, because we have on our operation, we have other people that come from other places and they're here for maybe 8 months and like trying to figure out like what's my stuff with how we're running in the operation and moving stuff forward versus what's their stuff in terms of their own learning curve. That can be really difficult sometimes.
I bet that is difficult. I mean, and you know, some of it is truly going to be, I mean, it just is, it's difficult, but I mean, my gut tells me if you would take, so give me, let's just do it. Give me and it doesn't have to be anything that would be, you know, but just something just off the top of your head, just a fact that might.
Oh, a fact. Okay, so I'm trying to think back to your thought model thing, but oh gosh, help me out,
Where are you
guys.
going?
It's hard, isn't it?
like not taking on someone else's struggle as if it's your
Yeah,
own.
yeah, like not, yeah, right, exactly. Thanks, Ben. So like yeah, like we have apprentices that come for 8 months and there is like a huge, tremendous learning curve about like, oh, this is the work of agriculture. We actually don't actually know what time we're going to stop at the end of the day. Or like we plan to stop at this time, but then stuff breaks, right? And we're not stopping because it's going to rain tomorrow. And if we don't finish this work, right? So like, how do you handle that? While at the same time, you're like the owner of the business and you like care about these people, but you're like, if we don't get this stuff done, like it's not going to work on the long run.
So what I didn't mention, and you're bringing up a good piece now, boundaries, which really goes in that thought model. But so what I'm hearing you say is we've got all this stuff we've got to get done, and we're going to, and we've hired, or these people are here working to help us. And I'm worried how they're going to feel. I'm worried how they're going to be worn out.
Yeah, like they're here. They've agreed to come here because they want to learn and be exposed to agriculture. Yeah. And I can't sugarcoat that. Like this is the way it is, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I know if they get to the end of the day and they're freaking burnt out, then like the next day is not going to be super great because they're going to be all like, what the hell was that just happened yesterday, right?
Right.
And yet like the work is not over. So like we have to like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but see, I love what that's great because can you control how they're going to be the next day?
No, I can't, but I feel like I have a responsibility to set up the environment that helps support positivity the next day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's all you can do. And I'm sure you are setting an environment that supports positivity, but we can't, but you can't, that person takes it.
Look,
What's the tag? I can't read that.
Ole says the solution is chocolate.
We don't grow chocolate in Montana, Ole.
And also I'm thinking this person has signed up, right? They've been interviewed, they have and so I think it's a change of a mindset that I am doing your ass a favor. Excuse me.
Yeah, okay.
Show you what it's really like.
Thank you. That's super helpful. So maybe one more question, Julie, while I got you, since I'm monopolizing. Climate change. It's freaking real, right? Like we had the worst drought ever. It was the driest June through October
And it
ever.
still is.
North of Havre still is. Like we did all of the work. Our crew did all the work. We like had the best seeding season ever. Things looked great. And then it all went to crap. So like, how do you handle that? Right? Like, because the risk balance between the rest of the world and what we're trying to do as organic producers is really messed up.
Yeah, it's big. And you know, there's a piece of, I mean, that's real. And grief is real. And you have to hold space and grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no sugarcoating that.
No.
But y'all are, I know my husband, I grew up in Fort Worth. I'm a city girl. I married a farmer and but he, and I didn't realize this, but he said, baby, farming is gambling. You know?
Yeah.
And then I lived it and I was like, oh, yes, it is. But y'all are, I mean, you're doing what you want to do. There's some risk and some of it doesn't pan out and you mourn and you grieve and you get the support you need. I mean, you know, you don't stuff it, you feel it and get through it and then go back, regroup and start again.
Well, thanks so much for your presentation. It's really great. And
Thank
Cliff
you.
and Anna are really special. They're like, I don't know, 120 miles east of us on the High Line.
Oh, they are, I think they're the best. I love it.
I think I would have an answer for that in a way. And, you know, certainly farming on the Highline is some of the hardest, most difficult times and experiences you will ever have. But I think even then there is a point where you do reach a point of gratitude for, if nothing else, maybe surviving sometimes. And, you know, there are those moments of beauty and you do have the Northern Lights and.
Yeah. And that does go to the gratitude journal. Really being on top of that might help when you get to that morning piece when the grief hits.
And then as Oli says, chocolate. So, well, are there any other questions?
Well, I appreciate all y'all's time.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's been a pleasure spending the evening with you and everyone on the Zoom.
I feel very honored. Thank y'all. And if I can be of any assistance, please give me a holler.
Well, we hope you can come to an in-person conference one of these days. All
Fun,
right.
but y'all are doing good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was a weird session.